This is the progressive pulsed no hang protocol on the hangboard, especially useful for warming procedures as a first step when you enter the gym or similar facility that has access to these kind of edges, or for climbers that still use it as a warming procedure that are developing some training history, especially that finger strength element, and they want to get their fingers well adapted to the kind of strain that a hangboard would do. So as a first step along that journey, this is a good way to go. What I'm going to do is just demonstrate the entire protocol. It's pretty brief, moves pretty fast, then explain the elements that I'm doing. So first and foremost, I get myself on a large rounded rung like this, and we're going to do 8 reps on 4 different rungs. So we're starting here. We're doing 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, now we get onto a large flat edge, a little bit less support for my fingers, and we're going to repeat this. I'm going to adjust this pad so I'm a little bit lower, so I flex the same at the knees. So 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, I don't have an intermediate rung for this one. We're just going to back our fingers off a little bit to provide a little bit less support to our fingers. And repeat again. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we're going to be onto a more standard training size edge. So it's a large edge, provides less support to our fingers though. So now we're going to repeat that. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the entire procedure. So this is that progressive pulse no hang. It's progressive because 2 elements of it. So as that rep count goes up, obviously I'm on the edge for a bit longer. So that means that time under tension increases as the rep scheme increases. But also because I'm flexing at the knees further and further throughout that, right? With that 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And because my upper body and my fingers are contracting isometrically, they're not moving. That flex through the knees, getting deeper with the count, means that they have got to take more and more of my body weight. So that progressive element is also for the intensity through the fingers, and we're going to stay below body weight for it, right? Hence the no hang. So my feet aren't really coming off the ground, but they're starting to get awfully close to that as we get towards that 8, and then we're moving a different edge and repeating that process. So it's pulsed as well, because you'll notice I didn't really rest between any given hang or no hang. I simply flexed, went again, moved to the next edge. There's no given rest scheme between any reps or sets for this. Go at your own pace, and you don't necessarily need to move quickly through it, but make the intensity such that you don't need much in the way of a pause. If you wanted to, and you're on, let's say, the training edge, so towards the end of our set, we're on this training edge, and we do 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you feel like you're sweating a bit too much, go ahead and pause real fast, get some chalk on there, and repeat with that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, there's a lot of force going through the fingers. Need to shake out, get a quick breath. This is perfectly fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. As you do this with your sessions more and more, gradually the amount of times you need to rest will decrease, right? So if you're just getting in and body weight on a training edge is difficult, if not quite where your strength is at, then you'll find you need a quick break in between some of these things. You'll need a little bit longer to shake the forearms out and get to the next edge. That's perfectly acceptable for this. And as you progress, the metric to look for is less and less pause between any given reps and any given sets as you progress. Okay, so the edges that I'm selecting, I've got 4 of them. We're decreasing the amount of support our fingers get. By doing that, as I build up, I'm putting more and more force through the rest of the connective tissue that's still on that edge. So the first one is a large rounded rung like this. I've got 3 different joints. I've got my MCP that's closest to the palm, the PIP in the middle of the finger, and then the DIP that's furthest away from the palm, right? Closest to the tip of the fingers. So with that first one, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that my MCP joint makes contact with the edge, but I'm not wanting a full bar where I'm gonna drive in part of the palm. I just want it to support that MCP joint. This will mean that the majority of my finger is distributing that load a little bit better, so it's not nearly as high of strain. Reason we're doing this, especially for a warming procedure, is you've got so much connective tissue, several joints through your fingers. There's a lot of synovial fluid, a lot of that connective tissue, and very little blood flow. So we can't warm it in the same way we would do large muscle groups, right? We want to dose very low intensity and gradually build that up, as well as the time under tension. That's what we're doing here, is just staying way below body weight with a lot of support through the entirety of the fingers and gradually increasing that at a level that's appropriate for us, right? So very good buildup on it. Ideal kind of thing would be if we could really gradually just add a pound of force, another pound of force, something like that. That's going to be obviously far too time intensive, equipment intensive, and just consuming, right? We want to get to our climbing. This is a good compromise on that. So I wouldn't spend more time doing this really gradual step, but first one we're talking about is that MCP joint. Again, make sure you can reach it in a comfortable aspect. Because I'm flexing at the knees, if I'm extended all the way up here and I'm on the ground and I'm trying to flex at the knees, well, I'm basically coming up off my feet already. So make sure you've got some kind of stable platform beneath you. I've just got a crash pad here folded in half. First rung I have supports all three of the joints. It's not really a full pull-up rung, and because I'm contracting isometrically here as I flex at the knees, they take more and more weight. We do 8 reps in total. Next one is going to be a large flat edge that, again, is going to support less of my fingers, so we have it making contact with that PIP joint, and the DIP joint is right there. So for instance, this one is about 45 millimeters deep. That tends to be a good depth for getting that. Depends on your finger morphology. So if they're very short fingers, you might not need to use as deep of an edge. If you got longer fingers than me, you might need to find a deeper edge. They're not always as accessible, so this would be an ideal, but you can also just go ahead and gradually decrease the support a little bit and get closer to the DIP joint if that's more relevant, or do a very slow buildup through a smaller edge. So don't just go for 1 to 8, skip to the next edge. Go ahead and do 1 to 8, and then on your next series, move a little bit faster on the flexion, right? So you can just do 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 on the first series, then 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So we take more weight for the next one, right? Okay, so large flat training edge, we repeat that process. Then on here, I don't really have an intermediate between this and a pretty fair sized training edge. So all I do is I make sure that my PIP joints aren't making contact with that. The DIP joints are still on that edge. They can get all the way to the edge and still be supported. And we're gonna repeat that process. And then I'm gonna move on to a training size edge. So a training size edge is what we're usually gonna wanna work that max finger strength on. And this is gonna be the largest possible edge that doesn't support our DIP joint. So we can get into that more climbing specific finger strength training that we want. For reference, this one is 22.5 millimeters, which I find is probably slightly smaller than I really could have. There's not a big value in me going smaller right now until we get into micro edge kind of training, but that's for a different procedure. I wouldn't use it for this warming process or developing that finger strength training history. So a fair size edge, 20 to maybe 25 millimeters, again, depending on finger morphology, is what we're gonna use for a strength training edge, a properly sized one. So this is a way to get comfortable with it and put that pressure through the fingers. So again, warming procedure for most climbers, this is a good way to walk into the gym and get immediately to getting your fingers prepared for the session at hand. And especially if you're looking to develop some finger strength training history, this is a good way to just dose it at the start while getting yourself prepared for climbing and starting to establish some warming climbing procedures. Last part is to put this kind of into context with that no hang aspect. Is if you imagine most of the strength training elements, we're gonna work at say 85 to 90% of our actual 1 rep max, potentially a bit less depending on your rep schemes. But we're working around there. We're not doing 100% by any stretch. And those warming sets, those sets well before our working volume, we're gonna hit 50% maybe. Maybe 60% at the most if we're gonna warm up quickly if you got a good training history to you, but 50% or so of your actual working volume intensity. And for most of us, we're not on a training size edge hanging more than double body weight. So if you envision that, more than double body weight is your 1 rep max, we're doing 90% of that, and you're doing 50% of that to warm up, that's body weight. So the idea that I would come in quite cold on this edge and warm myself up by just hanging here, well, that's a little too intense for the vast majority of us. So that helps contextualize why we're going with this no hang and why to keep it light, because again, there's so much connective tissue and so little blood flow that we want to just be really gradual with those progressions. So slightly more intensity, slightly more time under tension, while we back off the level of support so that our fingers get the kind of load through them that we should be experiencing on the wall.